Hey guys, tonight we begin with a city of marble temples, bustling markets, and more creative ways to die than you can count. It's ancient Rome, where ordering the wrong drink could poison you, the wrong glance could offend a senator, and the wrong god could ruin your entire week. The world is grand, dangerous, and survival is more about luck than strength. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just stepped into ancient Rome, where death was always right around the corner. The first thing you notice about Rome is the smell. It isn't the grand marble temples or the statues staring at you with smug immortality. No, the scent gets you first, before the architecture can even flex its muscles. Imagine a stew of roasting meat, horse dung, cheap perfume, spilled wine, and just a hint of public latrine wafting in the summer air. Congratulations. Your nostrils are officially citizens of the Roman Empire. You weave into the crowd, sandals slapping on cobblestones polished smooth by centuries of feet. Everyone is moving at once, shouting in Latin, Greek, or something in between. The forum ahead is alive with gossip, commerce, and the occasional man waving a scroll like it's the next big thing on TikTok. You try not to gawk like a tourist, though let's be honest, you're gaping. Because here's the rule you don't yet know in Rome: gawking too long at the wrong man's toga can kill you. Literally, it's not the lions you need to fear, not yet. It's the emperor. Or, more dangerously, the idea of him. Augustus, Caligula, Nero, pick your tyrant. Rome has a whole Pokémon set of emperors, each one with a different superpower for turning you into a corpse. The law is simple: insult the dignity of the emperor, and you've just signed your own execution order. And what counts as an insult? Well, that's the fun part. Everything. You bump shoulders with a man in a purple-trimmed toga, the imperial color. He turns frowning. You stammer an apology, but inside your heart does somersaults. Purple means power. Purple means money. Purple means this man has friends who could accuse you of LC, Majesté, before you even remember how to spell it. And in Rome, that's the golden ticket to your head, rolling down the forum steps like a dropped cabbage. Someone jostles past, whispering a joke about the emperor's latest haircut. The people nearby laugh too loudly, then instantly glance around in terror. Because what if a slave overheard? What if a rival reports them? In Rome, being funny about the emperor is the most efficient way to test how sharp the executioner's axe is this week. Picture this. You're hauled before a court, accused of making a face. Yes, a face. That suggested you weren't fully impressed with Caesar's speech. You plead innocence. Doesn't matter. The law is elastic, stretching to cover anything from an offhand sigh to outright treason. The emperor doesn't need to prove you wrong. You need to prove you adore him. And unless you've tattooed his name across your chest in henna, good luck convincing anyone. You keep walking, weaving through vendors hawking olives and bread. The air hums with chatter. Somewhere above the din, you hear a herald shouting the day's decrees. People pause, heads tilted. You notice how they nod too eagerly, eyes wide, mouths smiling just enough. It's all theater. Because in this city, you perform loyalty the way you'd perform CPR, frantically, with the knowledge that someone's life, probably yours, depends on it. A group of young men swagger past, reeking of wine and entitlement. One of them shouts something about Nero's singing voice, and his friends immediately hush him, dragging him into the shadows. Their laughter is nervous, brittle. They know. Everyone knows. Joking about the emperor's talents, whether it's music, racing, or his suspicious number of dead relatives. Isn't comedy, it's a death wish with a punchline carved in stone. You pause at a fountain. The water trickles, cool and inviting. A woman beside you whispers softly, "Did you hear? They executed a man yesterday for comparing the emperor to a donkey." She shakes her head. "A donkey! As if donkeys aren't useful. Carry loads, pull carts. But no treason." She sighs, sips the water, and hurries off. Now you're sweating. Not from the heat, though Rome's summer does a good job of slow roasting anyone dumb enough to wear wool. You're sweating because suddenly every thought in your head feels dangerous. Can they hear thoughts? What if you accidentally dream about the emperor naked, and someone finds out? You laugh at yourself, then instantly stop. Even laughing alone might be suspicious. You see, in Rome, the emperor is less a man and more a mirror. Everyone's survival depends on reflecting his image back perfectly. Too much admiration, and you look fake. Too little, and you look guilty. It's like trying to smile naturally in a passport photo. Except the penalty for messing it up is crucifixion. A trumpet blares, and the crowd stiffens. Soldiers stride past, armor gleaming, spears tapping rhythmically. Behind them, carried in a litter, is the emperor himself. Or maybe just his stand-in. It doesn't matter. You bow, you cheer, you shout praises until your throat burns. Because silence here is not golden. Silence is suspicious, and suspicion is fatal. Your neighbor bellows, "Ave Caesar," and you join in, voice cracking. You clap until your palms sting, until the soldiers pass and the street exhales. Then you notice the old man who didn't clap fast enough. 2 soldiers peel off, grab him by the arms, and drag him away. The crowd pretends not to see. Pretending is Rome's national sport. You want to run. You want to hide. But you're here, stuck in this city where the emperor's dignity is as fragile as blown glass and twice as sharp. You realize, with a sinking stomach, that survival in Rome isn't about strength or courage. It's about performance. Every word, every gesture, every smile rehearsed and calculated, because one slip is enough to end you. And the cruel joke. You can never tell when you've slipped until it's too late. The old man disappears into the alley with the soldiers, his sandals scraping stone, his cry swallowed by the noise of the marketplace. Nobody looks. You don't look. You pretend to study a basket of figs, as though you've been passionately interested in figs your entire life. Rome trains you this way. Trained paranoia, trained silence, trained loyalty. You chew on a fig and it tastes like ash, because now you know every piece of fruit, every bite of bread, comes with the aftertaste of fear. Your guide, if you had one, would tell you that this isn't new. The charge of Maestas, injuring the majesty of Rome, was originally meant to cover treason, betraying the state, selling secrets, that sort of thing. But emperors, clever creatures that they were, realized treason is such a flexible word. Why not bend it to cover anything that bothers them? So here you are, centuries before freedom of speech is even a dream, standing in a city where a raised eyebrow can be fatal. Take Tiberius, for instance. Tiberius, Rome's grumpy uncle of an emperor. He once had a man executed for owning a horoscope that suggested the emperor might die soon. Imagine that. A parchment, some scribbled stars, and suddenly you're meeting the business end of a blade. Astrologers learned to tread lightly in those days, muttering their predictions with the delicacy of someone explaining bad fi to a furious customer. And then there's Caligula. Oh, Caligula. If you were thinking, surely not every emperor was this paranoid, allow me to disappoint you. Caligula once declared war on Neptune, god of the sea, and ordered soldiers to collect seashells as spoils. If a man like that thought you smirked at the wrong moment, well, let's just say you wouldn't be smirking long. You stroll further into the forum, trying to blend in. Though blending in is difficult when you're gawking at everything like it's Disneyland. The statues loom above you. Marble generals, gods carved with perfect muscles, emperors with that faint smirk of men who've had entire senate houses grovel at their sandals. The sun burns your shoulders, sweat trickling, and you wonder how Romans tolerate the heat in those layers of wool and linen. They look composed. You look like a tourist who packed wrong. A vendor waves you over with a smile. Fine sandals, citizen. Strong leather, good for running. Running, you think, might be the best investment you'll ever make. But you shake your head. The man shrugs, then leans close. Be careful, stranger. They listen. He nods toward a pair of men loitering at the edge of the crowd. They're not dressed as soldiers, but their posture is military, their eyes scanning. Always scanning. You realize spies aren't a Cold War invention. They've been here the whole time, eavesdropping in togas instead of trench coats. And it's not just the state you fear. It's your neighbors, your slaves, even your own family. Anyone can accuse you of insulting the emperor. Maybe your wife is angry. Maybe your business rival wants your stall. Maybe a slave overheard you mutter about taxes. They whisper to the right ear, and suddenly you're on trial for treason. It's the ancient Roman version of being cancelled, except instead of losing followers, you lose your head. Speaking of trials, you wander toward the basilica where cases are heard. Inside, the air is cooler, shaded by high arches. Men argue, their voices bouncing off marble walls. You slip closer, pretending you belong, and listen. One man accuses another of comparing the emperor's singing voice to that of a dying goat. Gasps ripple through the crowd. The accused protests. Swears he only said the emperor's goat was worth singing about. Clever, but not clever enough. The magistrate frowns. You can already smell the executioner sharpening his blade. You step back quickly. Your heart pounds. The walls of Rome are closing in, and you've been here less than a day. Suddenly you understand why poets and philosophers spoke in riddles. Why senators couched their criticisms in layers of metaphor. Survive long enough, and you too would learn the art of saying everything without saying anything at all. A bell tolls outside. People begin drifting toward the amphitheater. Curious, you follow, swept along in the tide of bodies. The air grows electric, voices rising. The city pulsing like a single heartbeat. You emerge into the blazing light of the Colosseum's outer arches, massive and intimidating, as if built not just to entertain, but to remind everyone how small they really are. Inside, the roar is deafening. Tens of thousands of Romans cheer as gladiators strut, animals snarl from cages, and the emperor himself sits in a box, shaded by silk awnings. You squint up at him, that tiny figure commanding the lives of everyone below. Around you, people scream his name, chant prayers to his health, throw flowers into the arena. You clap weakly, then harder when you notice a soldier staring. Your palms sting again, but better pain in the hands than steel in the throat. The games begin. Blood sprays, swords clash, sand darkens under the weight of men who will never walk out again. You're sickened, but you cheer, because that's what survival looks like. The emperor laughs at a particularly brutal kill, and the crowd echoes him. It's like a grotesque dance. One man setting the rhythm and everyone else forced to follow. You lean toward your neighbor, a wiry man with crooked teeth. He's grinning ear to ear, eyes fixed on the emperor. You see, he whispers, if Caesar smiles, we smile. If he frowns, we weep. Life is simple when you let him do the thinking. He chuckles, then abruptly stops, glancing around. His grin hardens into a mask of reverence. Ave Caesar, he mutters quickly as if to erase any trace of rebellion. You nod, echoing him, though the words taste like iron. The emperor rises, raising his hand. Silence falls instantly, tens of thousands of people holding their breath together. He points toward a wounded gladiator on the sand. The man lifts his hand, begging for mercy. The emperor hesitates, milking the moment. The crowd leans forward, hungry. Then his thumb dips down. The roar is thunder. The gladiator's head is severed, blood spraying into the air, and the crowd cheers as if blessed by the gods themselves. You clap too, because what else can you do? In this city, to mourn the wrong death is to invite your own. As the noise rattles your bones, you realize this is the essence of Rome's spectacle, power, fear. The emperor's dignity isn't just a law, it's the oxygen of the empire. Breathe it in, and you live. Breathe it out wrong, and you suffocate. And standing there, palms roar from forced applause, you understand the cruel paradox. Rome offers the world, but the price is your voice. You glance once more at the emperor's box. At that tiny figure who can erase you with a flick of his thumb. Then you look back at the arena. The sand already raked smooth for the next fight. As if the man who just died never existed. And the thought creeps into your head, how long before the same could be said of you? The crowd keeps cheering long after the gladiator's body is dragged from the arena. The sand is smoothed over, blood hidden as if nothing ever happened. Rome doesn't like reminders. It likes illusions. Every death becomes a performance, and every survivor becomes an actor in the greatest theater on earth. The empire itself. You shuffle out with the throng, the heat pressing down like a physical weight. The air stinks of sweat, wine, and roasted meat sold by hawkers outside the amphitheater. Children chase each other through the crowd, their laughter oddly out of place against the memory of a severed head rolling in the dust. As you walk, a man stumbles near you, drunk and loud. He waves his cup and slurs. Caesar sings like a braying mule, The words hang in the air like a thundercloud. Instantly the crowd freezes. Faces turn, eyes darting, mouths clamped shut. The drunk man laughs, spilling wine down his chest, completely unaware of the noose tightening around him. Two guards materialize from the crowd as if conjured. They seize the man, dragging him away, while his laughter twists into a scream. The people around you exhale in relief, some even shaking their heads in disapproval, as if to say we would never. The performance resumes. Rome cannot tolerate silence for long. You quicken your pace. The sun sinks lower, shadows stretching across the streets. You pass vendors packing up, beggars curling into corners, soldiers leaning on spears as their eyes scan the crowd with predatory boredom. The city hums with unease, like a lion restless in its cage. Turning down a narrow alley, you nearly trip over a stray dog gnawing a bone. The smell here is worse, garbage, sewage. Humanity compressed into too little space. A boy darts past you barefoot, clutching a stolen loaf. Behind him, a baker shouts curses. Life in Rome is precarious. And not just because of emperors. Hunger, poverty, and disease all wait their turn to cut you down. But it's the emperor's dignity that haunts you most. You've seen enough in one day to know survival here isn't about strength, or even luck. It's about silence. About the careful art of nodding when you disagree, clapping when you're sickened, and cheering when your heart screams otherwise. Rome's most dangerous weapon isn't the sword. It's the expectation of loyalty, sharp and invisible. You emerge into the forum once more, the marble glowing pink in the dying light. Voices drift like smoke, senators whispering, merchants haggling, priests chanting to the gods. But beneath it all lies a hum, low and constant, the hum of fear. Fear that the wrong word, the wrong laugh, the wrong look could unravel everything. And as you stand there, watching the torches flare to life, you realize the cruelest truth. You don't need to insult the emperor to be killed in Rome. All you need to do is exist in his shadow. Tomorrow, you'll discover another danger, one just as insidious, lurking in omens, birds, and the shape of the stars. But for now, you find yourself whispering the words everyone whispers before sleep in this city. May Caesar never notice me. You wake to the sound of bells. At first you think it's church bells, something familiar, until you remember. You're in Rome, centuries before churches claim the skyline. These bells belong to priests, tolling from the temple steps, their echoes rolling down the stone streets like invisible waves. The city stirs with them, shutters opening, sandals clattering, voices rising like a flock of startled birds. You stumble out into the morning light, bleary-eyed, half wishing for coffee. Rome, sadly, does not do lats. Instead, the smell of bread baking pulls you along, warm loaves stacked in baskets by sweating bakers. A crowd already forms, coins clinking, arguments bubbling. But above it all there's a sense of tension. Everyone glances skyward, muttering, eyes twitching toward the horizon. What's going on? You whisper to a woman beside you. She clutches her loaf tight. The birds, she says. Her voice is low, urgent. Did you not hear? The augurs saw a raven fly left this morning. You blink, and she stares at you like you've just confessed to eating soup with a fork. And it means disaster! It means the gods are frowning. No one dares begin business until the signs improve. Sure enough, stalls remain closed. Men loiter with anxious faces, women whisper prayers under their breath. The city is paralyzed by a raven's casual wing beat. And you realize quickly, superstition in Rome isn't silly background noise. It rules life like a second emperor. The augurs, priestly bird watchers, essentially, hold power that rivals senators. If a chicken pecks grain with the wrong beak, whole battles are postponed. If lightning cracks across the sky at the wrong hour, deals collapse, weddings dissolve, and generals sulk in their tents. And woe betide the man who dares mock it. You wander toward the forum, curious, and find a knot of people clustered around a priest in white robes. He holds a bundle of sticks, shaking them like a gambler rolling dice. When they fall, the crowd gasps. He frowns. The gods are displeased. No public meetings today. Groans ripple through the crowd, but nobody dares argue. One senator mutters something under his breath. The priest's head snaps up. What did you say? Silence. The senator coughs and bows. Because in Rome, to mock the signs is not just impiety, it's treason wrapped in divine silk. And treason, as you've learned, is fatal. You trail after the crowd, listening as they murmur anxiously. Some clutch amulets shaped like phalluses. Yes, that's exactly what they are. Tiny bronze members dangling on cords, warding off the evil eye. You try not to stare. In Rome, even genitals are holy if they keep demons at bay. A man selling trinkets waves you over. Charm, stranger. Protects against curses. This one ensures good health. This one, no boils. And this one. He grins, shaking a particularly obscene pendant. Guarantees pleasure in bed. He winks. You pass quickly, though not before he presses one into your hand. For luck, you'll need it. His tone is half friendly, half deadly serious. The thing is, Romans believe it. All of it. Every sneeze, every twitch, every crow on a rooftop is a message from the gods. And ignoring those messages, that's like ignoring a text from your mob boss. It doesn't end well. Case in point, you overhear a story of a general who once set sail despite unfavorable omens. The chickens refused to eat, which was a terrible sign. So he, in a fit of irritation, tossed the chickens overboard. If they won't eat, let them drink, he declared. Brave, yes. But also stupid. His fleet was destroyed, his reputation ruined. And the joke became a cautionary tale whispered in taverns ever since. You picture the scene. Angry sailors glaring at their commander, as waves swallow their ships. All because he couldn't handle a few picky chickens. Rome's history is littered with corpses buried beneath bad omens. The day drags on. Business remains slow, the air heavy with apprehension. You pass a temple where priests slaughter a goat, its entrails spread on a marble slab. Men crowd close, watching intently as the priest pokes at the liver with a stick. He frowns, then smiles faintly. The signs are favorable again. The crowd exhales in relief, as if the universe itself has unclenched. Shops reopen. Coins jingle. Life resumes. You shake your head. All this over the wobble of a goat's intestine. But then you remember scoffing here is as dangerous as sneezing at a funeral. Mock the rituals. And you're not just defying priests. You're defying Rome's very identity. Because Rome believes the gods sit in judgment of everything. And if you're unlucky enough to be accused of disrespecting those judgments, you'll find yourself on trial for sacrilege. And Rome does not forgive sacrilege. That evening, you find yourself seated at a tavern, sipping sour wine that tastes like vinegar with ambitions. Around you, men gamble with dice, women argue over spilled drinks, a bard plucks a lyre out of tune. You relax for the first time all day, until the bard sings a verse mocking the augurs. His audience laughs, clapping. You even chuckle, relieved to hear someone else share your skepticism. Then the door slams open. A priest strides in, flanked by guards. The bard's face drains of color. His lyre slips from his hands. The laughter dies instantly. The guard sees him, dragging him outside. The tavern empties in silence, each patron staring at the floor, at their hands, anywhere but the door. You step into the street later, the air cool and damp. Somewhere nearby, the bard is screaming. You walk faster, clutching the obscene amulet in your pocket like it's your last lifeline. For the first time, you truly understand in Rome, superstition is not a choice, it's survival. And as the stars prick the sky above, you can't help but wonder. What if tomorrow's omen points to you? The next morning, you rise before dawn, not because you are eager to seize the day, but because the streets themselves will not let you sleep. The noise is different than yesterday, not merchants calling or donkeys braying, but the hollow sound of sandals scuffing stone as men shuffle toward the temples. You follow them, curious. The sky above a velvet bruise, just beginning to pale with the sun. The crowd gathers at the temple of Jupiter, clutching offerings. Coins, bread, even the odd chicken or two. You notice the faces tight with worry, hopeful in that desperate way gamblers look when placing their last coin on the table. Today, you overhear, is marked as a dies nefastus, an unlucky day. This is not the sort of bad luck you'd write off with a shrug and a knock on wood. In Rome, unlucky days are stitched into the calendar itself, and ignoring them is as dangerous as trying to cross a river while chained to a rock. On these days, official business halts, marriages are postponed, lawsuits suspended. To carry on as normal is to spit in Jupiter's eye, and Jupiter is not known for patience. A man in fine robes approaches the temple steps, clearly a merchant. His partner hisses, grabbing his sleeve.
"You fool! Today is no day to sign contracts!"
But the merchant waves him off, muttering about lost profits. He ascends the stairs to hand his offering to the priest. The priest accepts it, performs the ritual, and then pauses. His brows furrow. He turns the offering in his hand. A murmur ripples through the crowd. The merchant begins to sweat, tugging at his robes. What's wrong? The priest finally speaks. The signs are poor. The gods reject this. The gasps rise, some women crossing themselves, others clutching charms to their lips. The merchant stammers, "I only wish to sign a contract, a harmless contract." The priest's voice sharpens. "On a day such as this, you tempt the wrath of the gods." By now, the crowd is bristling, and you feel the tide of opinion turn. A man who defies omens is not just reckless, he endangers everyone. It's as though he's standing in a crowded room, cheerfully lighting a torch above barrels of oil. If the gods decide to punish him, the punishment may well splash onto others. The merchant protests louder, his words swallowed by the crowd's hiss. Someone throws a clod of dirt. Another, a rotten fig. Soon, the man is pelted from all sides, stumbling down the stairs, his contract torn to shreds. You wince, realizing that in Rome, it isn't always the gods who strike you down first. It's your neighbors, eager to purge bad luck from their midst. As the day stretches on, you wander through alleys where small shrines bloom like flowers in unexpected corners. Each shrine holds offerings: a tiny figurine, a splash of wine, a hunk of bread. You pause at one, only to be yanked aside by a boy. "Don't stand there!" he hisses. If the flame dies while you block it, you'll be cursed. His eyes are round, frightened, as if he's just saved you from stepping into fire. He's dead serious. You step back quickly, murmuring thanks. Later, you overhear soldiers speaking in hushed tones about the dangers of walking beneath certain arches on unlucky days, of women weaving spells into the hems of tunics, of witches in the Suburra who can twist fate with a glance. You laugh softly at the last one, until you see their faces, grim, pale, utterly convinced. These are not men prone to flights of fancy. These are men who've killed, bled, marched under the burning sun, and they are terrified of a woman with a few scraps of wool. Rome is, after all, a city where rational engineering and irrational fear exist side by side. They can build aqueducts that carry water for miles, but if a crow lands on the aqueduct wall, the work stops until the augurs approve. They can lay out armies with mathematical precision, but if the wrong words are uttered before battle, men will refuse to march. You begin to suspect the empire itself is held together less by roads and legions, and more by the fragile glue of superstition. That evening you are invited. Well, dragged more than invited into a household feast. Your host, a plump man named Flaccus, insists you eat and drink, though you barely know him. His house is stuffed with cushions, smoke from lamps curling toward the rafters, and the smell of roasted pork mingling with garlands of flowers. You sit uneasily, sipping wine that burns the back of your throat. Midway through, one of the guests sneezes. The room freezes. Everyone turns, eyes darting to the master of the house. Flaccus claps his hands. "Quickly, say it." The guest, pale, stammers, "May Jupiter bless me." The room exhales, shoulders sagging in relief. Laughter bubbles up, forced but genuine. The feast continues. You blink, still processing. A sneeze, a single sneeze nearly halted the dinner. But that's Rome, one careless act. And suddenly you're walking on the edge of sacrilege. Forget to say the right words. Forget to pour the right libation. Forget to nod at the right shrine. And you risk more than dirty looks. You risk being branded impious, a danger to the delicate balance between mortals and gods. And once that label sticks, it's a short walk to exile, or worse. By the time you leave Flaccus's house, your head is spinning, not just from the wine, but from the constant vigilance. You find yourself muttering small prayers under your breath, touching doorframes for luck, slipping the obscene little amulet from your pocket whenever a shadow crosses your path. You've become one of them, twitching at every omen, searching for signs in every flicker of the torchlight. And you realize it isn't faith that makes superstition dangerous here. It's fear. Fear of standing out, fear of attracting whispers, fear that one unlucky glance will be the end of you. Rome thrives on power, but beneath that marble surface, it quivers on dread. And as you step through the darkened streets, the amulet warm in your hand, you can't shake the feeling that the gods, or perhaps just the Romans, are watching, waiting for you to slip. The night deepens, and the moon sits low over the rooftops like a pale coin no one dares to spend. You walk quickly, your sandals snapping against the cobbles, the city quieter now but never fully silent. Somewhere in the Sabura, a dog barks. Somewhere else, a woman wails. Whether in grief or in ecstasy, it's impossible to tell. You pause at a crossroads where two alleys meet. At its center stands a small, rough shrine. A cluster of stones, a crude carving of a god's face, its features worn smooth by time and weather. At its base lie offerings, half-burnt candles, dried figs, even a splash of wine glistening red in the moonlight. Instinct whispers to you, move along. You are a stranger here, and every stone in this city seems to have rules you don't know. But curiosity, that stubborn weed, pulls you closer. You crouch, studying the little idol, amused at how such a simple face could hold such weight. You even reach out, fingertips brushing the stone. Stop. A voice hisses. You whirl. A young man stands in the shadows, clutching a loaf of bread to his chest as though it were treasure. His eyes blaze with panic. Do not touch! That is the last shrine. Do you want us all cursed? You pull your hand back, mumbling an apology, but it's too late. He spits 3 times on the ground, mutters a string of words you can't follow, and bolts into the dark. You're left standing there, your skin crawling. Even the smallest gesture, a touch, a glance, can spiral into terror. And if someone spreads word that you disrespected a shrine, who will believe your side of the story? Not the magistrates, not the priests, and certainly not the crowd. You hurry homeward, clutching your amulet so tightly it leaves an imprint in your palm. By dawn, you're no longer a casual traveler. You've begun to move like the locals, eyes always scanning for signs. You notice birds where you never did before. You catch yourself holding your breath when stepping under an archway. You murmur blessings when passing a beggar, just in case. It's exhausting. Your shoulders ache from the invisible weight of dread. You understand now why Romans live as though they are perpetually auditioning for divine approval. Because they are. One mistake, one careless word, one moment of irreverence, and the mob, the priest, or the gods themselves might erase you. Later that afternoon, you pass the forum once again. A crowd is gathered, not in prayer this time, but in outrage. A man has been accused of mocking an augur, calling him a fraud. The augur, red-faced and indignant, declares that the gods demand justice. The crowd roars its agreement. You crane your neck to see the accused. He is not much older than you, his tunic plain, his hands trembling. It was a joke, he pleads. I meant no insult, but his words are drowned in the chants. Impious, impious! The magistrate nods grimly, and the sentence is swift. The man is to be flogged, driven from the city, never to return. You watch, your stomach tight, as the punishment is carried out then and there. The crowd cheers, convinced order has been restored. And you realize, superstition is not just private dread, it is public law. To mock an augur is to mock Rome itself. To defy omens is to undermine the empire's very scaffolding. No one can afford to laugh at it, not here. That night, back in your borrowed lodging, you lie awake. Every creak of the beams above feels like a portent. Every flicker of lamplight seems to carry a warning. You think of the flogged man, of the pelted merchant, of your own near mistake at the shrine. Rome is not merely dangerous for its swords and poisons. It is dangerous for its invisible rules. You drift into uneasy sleep, and when dreams come, they are crowded with birds, ravens, owls, vultures, circling, always circling, waiting for you to slip. And when morning comes, you know with bone, deep certainty, surviving superstition here is nearly impossible. But even as you wrestle with the weight of unseen forces, a new danger rises, sharper and far more physical, because while the gods may be unpredictable, men can be far crueler. Tomorrow, you will brush shoulders with Rome's most volatile sons, the gladiators and the soldiers. And if you thought omens were deadly, wait until you see what happens when you cross a man trained to kill. The first thing you notice is the smell. It is not the perfume of incense or the tang of wine, but something far more raw, sweat baked into leather, blood dried on sand, and the sharp metallic bite of iron heated by the sun. You have wandered into a place where men are trained to die beautifully, or, if fortune favors them, to kill beautifully. This is the Ludus, the gladiator school, and you are not welcome here. You shouldn't even be inside the gates. But curiosity is a sly traitor. You told yourself you would only peek. Just look at the famous gladiators training in the flesh, and then slip away unnoticed. But now the heavy wooden doors have clanged shut behind you, and the shouts of men, the ring of steel on steel, and the slap of bare feet on packed earth surround you like a trap. Two men are circling each other, in the yard. They wear helmets with face grills that turn them into creatures rather than humans, their breaths loud and inhuman. One carries a curved sword, the other a heavy net weighted with lead. You are struck by the absurdity of it, like a fisherman gone mad. But when the net hisses through the air and nearly entangles the sword arm of his opponent, you see the brilliance in the madness. The crowd of other trainees whoops and jeers, and the Lannister, the trainer, watches with arms crossed, eyes hard as marble. And then you realize they are not training to win. They are training not to die. The difference is everything. A soldier brushes past you, not a gladiator, but a legionary, off duty perhaps or here on some errand. His armor clinks as he moves, the iconic lorica segmentata shining dully in the sun. He glares at you, muttering something under his breath about gawking provincials. You give him a nervous smile. He does not smile back. Soldiers in Rome are not like the idealized statues. They are tired, scarred, irritable. And here's the thing, they know exactly how fragile you are. You feel out of place, soft and exposed. Your tunic clings with sweat already, while these men, hardened by years of discipline, seem carved from stone. If superstition could trip you up yesterday, today it will be flesh and steel that undo you. A man notices you staring. He is huge, his arms thick as columns, his face a ruin of scars and broken nose. He leans his wooden practice sword against his shoulder and saunters over. You try to step aside, but the Lannister barks a command, and suddenly the giant is blocking your path. "What are you doing here?" he asks, his Latin thick with an accent from some faraway province. You stammer an answer about curiosity, about wanting to learn. He laughs, but it is not the friendly kind of laugh. It is the laugh a lion might make if lions laughed at all. You think this is a place for tourists. No, little rabbit. This is where men bleed. This is where men prove themselves. He presses the wooden blade against your chest, not hard enough to break skin, but hard enough to let you know what it would feel like if it were iron. Behind him, the other gladiators chuckle, muttering wagers about whether you'd last a heartbeat or two in the arena. You try to retreat, but the Lannister's voice booms across the yard. "Give him a lesson." The giant grins. Before you can protest, you're shoved into the sand, a wooden sword thrust into your hands. The crowd forms a loose circle. You have no choice. The giant lunges. The first strike knocks the wind from you even though he's holding back. The second jars your arms so badly you nearly drop the sword. By the third, you're on your knees, gasping. The crowd howls with laughter. The Lannister waves the giant off at last, but not before he smacks you across the ribs hard enough to leave a bruise you'll be nursing for weeks. You stagger up, humiliated, heart racing. But more than humiliation, you feel terror, because in Rome, humiliation has a way of becoming fatal. A careless word to the wrong soldier, an accidental insult to a gladiator's pride, and suddenly you're not just entertainment. You're a corpse. Rome reveres its warriors, but it also fears them. And fear, when mixed with pride, is volatile. Later, as you limp away, you overhear whispers about a man who mocked a gladiator last week. Drunk, he had shouted insults at the amphitheater, calling the fighters slaves and cowards. The next day, his body was found in the Tiber, face swollen, lips blue. No one investigated too deeply. Everyone understood you do not cross men whose lives revolve around death. And yet the amphitheater remains the beating heart of the city. You are swept along in the tide of spectators one morning, joining the throng heading to the Colosseum. The sun is merciless, the air buzzing with excitement. Vendors shout about olives, honey cakes, and watered wine. Children dart underfoot. The closer you get, the more enormous the structure looms. Arches upon arches, tiers stacked so high they scrape the sky. Inside, the roar hits you like a wave. Tens of thousands of voices, chanting, laughing, jeering. The sand of the arena glows golden in the light, already stained with dark patches. A trumpet blares, and two gladiators stride into the center. The crowd hushes, the silence thick with anticipation. The fight begins, and the crowd becomes a living creature. moaning when a blade misses, shrieking when blood flows, demanding more, always more. You find yourself caught up in it despite your dread, leaning forward, heart hammering with the clash of steel. And then it happens. One of the gladiators falls, weapon knocked from his hand. He raises his arm, pleading for mercy. The victor stands above him, sword poised. The crowd erupts into a chant, "Ugula! Igula!" Slit his throat. The editor of the games, a wealthy senator seated in a position of honor, raises his hand. All eyes turn to him. With a flick of his thumb, he seals the fallen man's fate. The sword plunges, and the sand drinks deep. You reel back, horrified. And yet the crowd is jubilant, tossing flowers, cheering the victor as if he were a god. To them, death is not horror, it is spectacle. And to question that, even to grimace too obviously, is dangerous. You glance around nervously, schooling your face into something neutral. You clap along weakly, lest someone notice your disgust. Because in Rome, your opinion is never truly private. A neighbor, a stranger, even the slave pouring your wine could report your words. And to speak against the games is to insult the emperor himself, who sponsors them to display his generosity. You leave the Colosseum shaken, the chants still ringing in your ears, and you realize here, gladiators and soldiers alike hold power over life and death, not just in the arena but in the streets. Cross them, insult them, even look the wrong way, and you will not survive long enough to learn the next lesson of Rome. Yet survive you must. Because tomorrow, another peril awaits, one that even the strongest sword arm cannot block. It is not blood or steel that will undo you next. It is money. And Rome has ways of turning debt into a death sentence. You don't sleep well that night. The shouts of the Colosseum replay in your head, a phantom chant. Ugula. Ugula, echoing through your dreams. When dawn filters through the thin shutters, you are grateful for the light, though it brings little comfort. Rome in daylight is no gentler than Rome by torchlight. The streets are already alive. A procession of legionaries marches past, boots slamming against stone in rhythm, the gleam of their helmets almost blinding. You step aside quickly, because you've already learned something critical. Never, under any circumstances, block the path of a Roman soldier. Not even if you're only half a foot in the way. Not even if you were here first. These men carry the weight of empire on their shoulders, and their tempers are short. As they pass, you catch sight of one soldier's arm, inked with crude marks, tolly lines scratched into the skin with black pigment. They aren't decorative, they're kills. The man notices you staring. He raises one eyebrow, and you instantly drop your gaze to your sandals. Rome teaches you humility the hard way. You follow the soldiers at a cautious distance, because curiosity gnaws at you like a hungry rat. They peel off into a courtyard where a group of gladiators are drinking, their laughter rough, edged with violence. The air between the two groups is tense. Soldiers and gladiators live parallel lives of blood and spectacle, but their egos clash like cymbals. Soldiers think gladiators are pampered slaves who fight for applause, not empire. Gladiators think soldiers are pompous pawns who need entire legions to do what one man in the arena can do alone. It doesn't take much. A slurred insult, a shoulder brushed too hard for voices to rise. You hover near the wall, frozen, as words turn into shoves and shoves turn into fists. The clash is sudden, brutal. Helmets are ripped off, cups overturned, wine spilling like fresh blood. One soldier cracks a gladiator across the jaw with his shield. Another gladiator smashes a jug over a soldier's back. You make the mistake of trying to slip away quietly. A soldier spots you moving and snarls. Who are you with? Them. His finger jabs toward the gladiators. Your throat dries. This is Rome's other dangerous truth: neutrality is rarely an option. To not pick a side is to be suspicious. To pick the wrong one is to be dead. Jest passing through. You manage, trying to keep your tone light, casual. The soldier stares at you for a long, tense moment. Then the brawl takes his attention back, and you scuttle off before anyone else notices you. By the time you duck into another alley, your heart is hammering like a blacksmith's hammer. You've had enough of warriors for one day. You need calm, safety, somewhere quieter. But Rome offers no such sanctuary. Because now you stumble straight into another kind of mob, not soldiers, not gladiators, but ordinary citizens whipped into fury. They swarm the forum, shouting about grain shortages, about corrupt officials who hoard wheat while children starve, Their voices boom against the marble columns, filling the air with anger thick as smoke. The city's lifeblood, bread and games, is faltering, and people are not patient. A man grabs your arm, dragging you into the knot of bodies. "Shout!" he commands. "Raise your voice with us, stranger!" His breath smells of sour wine and desperation. You open your mouth, but what comes out is barely more than a croak. The crowd doesn't notice. They roar on, fists punching the sky, and for a fleeting second you feel their rage like your own. Hunger, injustice, the suffocating grip of power. Then soldiers arrive. Not the swaggering individuals you've seen before, but disciplined ranks with shields raised, spears bristling. Their faces are masks of stone. The crowd wavers but does not disperse. A single rock arcs through the air, striking a soldier's helmet with a dull clang. And that is the spark. The clash is terrifying. Shields slam forward, spears jab, people scream. The mob, fierce in their anger, suddenly looks fragile against the iron wall of trained killers. A woman is shoved to the ground, trampled. A boy vanishes under the press of bodies. You barely escape the surge, stumbling down a side street with your ears ringing, your chest tight with fear. In Rome, to be caught in a riot is to flirt with death. It does not matter that you didn't throw a stone, didn't raise your fist. If you are in the wrong place at the wrong time, you are guilty by proximity. And punishment in Rome is not measured with subtlety. When you finally reach your lodging, a cramped room with walls that sweat mildew, you slump against the door. You are alive. Barely, but your bruised ribs from the gladiator's wooden sword throb. Your throat is raw from the dust of the forum. And you realize something bitter: this city is trying to kill you, and it hasn't even gotten creative yet. But Rome has many ways of tightening the noose. Some are obvious, like steel in the arena. Others are slower, more insidious, like the coil of debt. You first notice it in the tavern that evening. A man at the next table is arguing with the innkeeper. His voice is desperate. He owes for wine, for bread, for a bed. "Just a few denarii," he insists. "Tomorrow he will have it. Tomorrow." The innkeeper's patience is gone. "You said that yesterday," he snaps. "And the day before. Pay, or you'll regret it." The man mutters, head bowed. You think that's the end of it. But later, when you step outside, you see two men waiting in the shadows. They are not soldiers. They are not gladiators. They are worse. They are debt collectors. They grab the man, dragging him into the alley. He protests, begging, but their fists silence him quickly. One holds him down while the other explains in a cold voice that his debt is now doubled, interest for his tardiness. If he cannot pay, his possessions will be seized. If he has none, well, there are always other ways. You realize with a chill what that means. Slavery. In Rome, a free man who cannot pay what he owes may find himself in chains, sold off to cover his debt. His children too, if it comes to that. The man sobs, promising to find the money. The collectors release him, shoving him into the dirt. They leave him there, broken and bleeding, as if to remind him, and you, that Rome does not forgive weakness. You hurry away, but the image clings to you. You think of your own pouch of coins, not nearly as full as it should be. Every loaf of bread, every mouthful of watered wine, every night in a flea-ridden bed chips away at it. How many denarii stand between you and chains? The city presses in on you with invisible weight. Soldiers, gladiators, mobs, debts. It feels like walking on a knife's edge. And still, there is another peril you haven't faced yet. One that lurks not in shadows or arenas, but at the very top of the marble steps: politics. For in Rome, a careless word against the wrong senator, the wrong faction, even the wrong gossip whispered at a feast, can mean exile or execution. The emperors may wear crowns of laurel, but their ears are sharp, and spies are everywhere. You lie awake on your straw mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, and you cannot help but wonder, how many more days can you survive this city before it swallows you whole? The answer waits in the morning, when an invitation arrives. Though invitation is too polite a word, it is a summons. And when Rome summons you, refusal is not an option. The summons arrives on a thin scrap of parchment, folded once and sealed with red wax. The seal bears no name, no crest, just the faint imprint of an eagle's wing. It is the sort of thing you do not question. You break the seal, and the message is short, almost insultingly so. Your presence is requested at the Curia. Do not delay. The Curia, Rome's Senate House, Your gut tightens. You have avoided politics so far, hovering on the edges where swords clash and bread grows stale. But politics is the true blade that cuts deepest, sharper than any gladius. And now, like it or not, you are about to walk right into its hilt. The streets toward the forum buzz with activity, thicker and louder than usual. Vendors shout louder, beggars press harder, even the dogs bark with more urgency. News travels fast in this city, and it seems everyone knows something you don't. Whispers cling to the air. A senator accused of treason, a governor siphoning coin from the provinces, a grain shortage worsening by the day. You realize Rome is on edge not just with blood and hunger, but with paranoia. By the time you reach the steps of the Curia, your stomach is knotted. The building looms, tall and rectangular, its bronze doors gleaming in the sunlight. Guards flank the entrance, their expressions blank, but their eyes sharp. They measure everyone who enters, as if calculating how many denarii you might be worth at auction, if things go poorly. Inside, the air is cooler, scented faintly with wax and ink. Senators in white togas with purple stripes lounge on benches, fanning themselves lazily. Yet their conversations are anything but lazy. They murmur in tight circles, eyes darting, voices clip. You realize quickly that this is not a place of reasoned debate. It is a pit of lions, and every senator is hungry. You keep your head down, trying to blend into the marble. It doesn't work. A man with sharp features and sharper eyes notices you. His toga gleams whiter than the rest, the purple stripe broad, arrogant. "You there?" he calls, his voice carrying across the hall. "Come closer." You obey, because what else can you do? He introduces himself with a name you've heard whispered before: Cassius Varro, known for his cunning tongue and ruthless ambition. The kind of man whose smile is a blade hidden in velvet. He studies you as though weighing your worth. "You're new to Rome," he says, though it isn't a question. That makes you useful. Unseen, unconnected. A blank slate? He leans closer, lowering his voice. "We have matters that require discretion." Your pulse quickens. Discretion in Rome is just another word for conspiracy. He doesn't wait for your answer. Simply continues. "There are whispers of corruption. Some men grow fat while the city starves. We need witnesses. Eyes that see, but mouths that stay silent until asked to speak." His gaze hardens. "Do you understand?" You nod, though you're not sure you do. His hand claps your shoulder, a gesture both friendly and heavy with menace. "Good. Then you'll come to dinner tonight. We'll discuss further." As he moves away, other senators glance at you with expressions ranging from curiosity to disdain. You suddenly feel as though you've stepped onto a stage far more dangerous than the arena. Here, applause is silence, and the roar of the crowd is the sound of knives being drawn in shadows. You leave the Curia with your head buzzing. Dinner with a senator sounds luxurious, but you know better. In Rome, meals are traps baited with olives and honeyed wine. You walk the streets as though each cobblestone is a step deeper into a pit. The sun is setting when you arrive at Varro's villa. It is vast, its atrium filled with fountains and mosaics that gleam in the torchlight. Slaves move silently, their eyes lowered, carrying platters heavy with roasted meats, figs, and jugs of wine. Varro greets you with warmth so rehearsed it almost feels genuine. Around the table sit other men, some you recognize from the Curia, others unknown but equally polished. Conversation flows like the wine, sweet at first, but beneath it you hear the acid bite of politics. Province's bleeding coin. Generals too ambitious for comfort. An emperor whose patience is running thin. At one point, Varro leans toward you, his eyes glittering in the lamplight. "Tell me," he says softly, "when the people riot, when the soldiers grumble, when whispers of treason grow louder, who do you think suffers first?" You hesitate. The question is a trap no matter how you answer. He smiles faintly at your silence, as though that is answer enough. The dinner continues, but the tension coils tighter with every toast, every laugh that sounds more like a warning. Finally, as the night deepens, Varro lifts his cup. "To Rome," he declares, voice booming. "May she be strong enough to silence her traitors." The others echo the toast. You lift your cup too, though your hand trembles. You drink, but the wine tastes bitter, metallic, almost like blood. When you finally leave the villa, the city feels different. The streets are emptier, quieter, but heavier with menace. You glance over your shoulder more than once, half expecting to see shadows following you. And perhaps you do. For you realize now that survival in Rome is not only about avoiding blades in the arena or debts in taverns. It is about knowing whose side you stand on before someone else decides it for you. And tonight, whether you meant to or not, you have been noticed. When you reach your room and collapse onto the straw bed, you cannot shake Varro's words, echoing in the silence, who suffers first. You close your eyes, but sleep refuses to come, because deep down you already know the answer. It is always the ones caught in the middle, and you, stranger, are standing in the middle of Rome's storm. You don't remember when you finally drifted into sleep, but the dreams are thick and murky. Snatches of voices in Latin, flashes of torches in dark alleys, and that senator's smile, pale and sharp as a dagger. When you wake, your tongue is dry, your head heavy, and the light streaming through the shuttered window feels almost accusatory, like the sun itself knows what you agreed to last night. Rome, of course, does not pause to let you gather your thoughts. By the time you drag yourself into the street, the city is already alive with noise merchants, shouting prices over one another. Women bargaining for bread that seems more air than grain, and somewhere in the distance, the steady thud of a hammer on an anvil. But beneath it all, you notice something else, the sense that everyone is watching. Not you, specifically, but everyone is watching everyone. Suspicion clings to Rome like the smell of sewage in the Tiber. A man selling olives leans closer as you pass. "Keep your ears open," he mutters. They're whispering again. He doesn't explain who they are. He doesn't have to. In this city, there is always a they. When you reach the forum, the usual bustle feels slightly off. Men huddle closer than usual, their gestures small and controlled, like actors in a play who know the audience is watching. A group of senators pass by in crisp togas, their expressions carved from marble, and you catch one phrase from their hushed conversation. The grain ships are late again. You don't need to be a senator to know what that means. Grain feeds Rome, and Rome feeds on grain. If the ships are delayed, the people riot. If the people riot, someone will be blamed. And if someone is blamed, someone dies. And now you've been invited into the dining rooms where those decisions are made. The rooms where a man's fate can be sealed with a single nod over a cup of watered wine. That evening, when you return to Varro's villa, you tell yourself you're just observing, keeping your head down. But the moment you step into that perfumed atrium again, you feel the noose tighten. Varro greets you warmly, too warmly, the kind of embrace that says, "You belong to us now." His friends are gathered once more, lounging on couches while slaves pour wine and scatter petals on the floor. The air smells of roasted lamb and incense, but beneath it, faint and metallic, is that bitter tang again. The smell of politics, and perhaps poison. Conversation begins light, drifting lazily from gladiator bouts to the emperor's newest marble statue. But soon enough, it sharpens. The way a casual game of dice sharpens when the stakes climb higher. "You heard of Fulvius?" one man says, sipping his wine. "Caught taking bribes from the provinces. They say the emperor might make an example of him." A ripple of amusement passes around the table, though no one laughs too loudly. Another man heavier, with jowls quivering when he speaks, leans in. "And what of Cornelius? Last week he was favored. Today they say he has enemies everywhere." He shrugs, a gesture that somehow manages to be both casual and sinister. Favor shifts quickly in Rome. Varro listens, smiling faintly, then sets down his cup with deliberate care. "Favor does shift," he says, voice calm but carrying. "Which is why one must always know where it is blowing, like a sailor reading the wind." His eyes flicker briefly to you, and in that moment, you feel less like a guest and more like a pawn he has placed on the board. As the evening stretches on, the talk grows darker. You realize with a chill that they are not merely discussing corruption or grain shortages. They are discussing people, as if they are pieces to be moved, used, or removed entirely. One man's downfall becomes another's opportunity. One senator's death is not tragedy, but a vacancy to be filled. At one point, a slave brings in a tray of figs, perfectly ripe, glistening under oil. Varro plucks one, rolling it between his fingers before biting into it with deliberate slowness. He gestures toward the tray. "Eat, my friends. Life is short, and figs are sweet. Why waste time in suspicion?" The words hang in the air, thick and heavy. Because in Rome, figs are not always figs. They can be vessels of poison, symbols of deceit. Everyone hesitates before reaching for one, glancing sidelong at each other, until finally one senator laughs too loudly and takes one, biting quickly, as if to prove his courage. You decline, mumbling something about not being hungry, though your stomach gnaws with hunger. Better hunger than the alternative. Later, when the others have left, and the villa is quiet save for the rustle of slaves clearing platters, Varro draws you aside. His voice lowers, smooth as oil but edged with iron. You're learning, I see. Watching. Listening. That is good. He places a hand on your shoulder, and though his grip is light, it feels like chains. But you must also learn when to speak. I may need you soon. There are truths that must be told, by the right mouth at the right time. Your heart pounds. To speak for Varro is not an honor, it is a risk. In Rome, words kill more efficiently than blades. You nod anyway, because refusal is not an option. That night, lying awake again on your straw mattress, you realize just how deep into the coils you've wandered. Yesterday you were just another face in the crowd, dodging debt collectors and soldiers. Today, you are brushing against the sharp edges of men who topple governments over dinner. Tomorrow you might be the one they whisper about. Days pass, and the tension in the city tightens like a bowstring. Grain still hasn't arrived, and the people mutter angrily in the streets. Fistfights break out at bakeries. A soldier beats a man bloody for shouting too loudly at a merchant. The air smells of sweat and fear. And then, one morning, the news spreads like wildfire. Senator Cornelius, the one whose favor had been faltering, has been found dead. No wounds, no signs of struggle. Just dead. Peaceful, they say, in his sleep, but you know better. Rome has no peaceful deaths. The forum buzzes with speculation, theories flying thicker than flies around garbage. Poison, whispers one. Strangled in the night, says another. Varro, some dare to mutter, though only quietly and never when he might hear. That evening, Varro's villa is quieter than usual, but no less dangerous. He receives you with the same smooth smile, though his eyes gleam harder. Cornelius, he says, shaking his head as if saddened. A tragedy, truly. But Rome endures. Rome always endures. You nod, though your skin crawls. Because now you understand fully. Rome is not just dangerous because of swords or riots. Rome is dangerous because of men like Varro. Men who smile while they sharpen their knives. And whether you like it or not, you are now one of the knives in his hand. The night grows long. The lamps gutter low. And Varro speaks of the future with quiet intensity. The emperor, he says softly, cannot be everywhere at once. That is why Rome needs men of loyalty, men who see clearly, men like us. He pauses, letting the words sink in, and then he leans closer. But tell me, stranger, are you loyal? The question hangs between you like a blade suspended by a single thread. Do you say yes, binding yourself to him completely? Do you hesitate and reveal doubt? Do you lie? In Rome, lies are only as strong as the tongue that speaks them. And the knife waiting behind the speaker. You feel the weight of his gaze, the heat of the lamps, the press of history itself. And you realize that whatever answer you give, your life has already changed. Because in ancient Rome, loyalty is just another word for survival. And survival, you are starting to learn, is the rarest luxury of all. The next morning, you make the mistake of breathing too deeply. The air is thick with smoke from the baker's ovens. But it's not bread you smell, it's fury. A crowd has gathered in the forum, and from the sound of it, bread is the last thing on their minds. Where is the grain? A woman shrieks, shaking her fist in the air. Her hair is matted, her eyes wild, and her voice cracks with desperation. My children starve while the senators fatten themselves. Others shout in agreement, and soon a chant swells. Grain! 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 The soldiers stationed nearby shift uneasily, their armor gleaming under the sun. They're trained for war, not for hunger. Hunger is worse than war. It makes men irrational, it makes women fearless, it makes a crowd into a beast with many mouths and no sense. You press yourself against a wall as the chant grows louder, feeling the vibration of it in your chest. The people want blood, though they'll settle for bread if it comes quickly enough. But no ships glide into the harbor today. No relief is in sight. The beast is hungry. By the time you reach Varro's villa, the city feels ready to split open. Varro greets you calmly, as if the chaos outside were a mere rumor. He waves a hand at a slave to pour you wine, and when you hesitate, remembering the figs, he smiles faintly. Trust is the coin of Rome, my friend. Spend it wisely, or hoard it until it molds. But know this: a man without trust is already dead. You drink. It tastes of sour grapes and fear. Tonight, the gathering is smaller. Only Varro and two others, both men you've seen in the Senate. One has sharp cheekbones and eyes that dart like a sparrow's, never resting. The other is older, with deep lines etched into his face and hands that tremble slightly when he lifts his cup. They lean close as Varro speaks, their expressions grave. It cannot continue. Varro murmurs. The people riot, the emperor is blind, and the Senate dithers like old women. He glances at you, as if to remind you that you are no longer merely an observer, but a participant. Rome needs stability, order, a strong hand to guide her. The older senator nods. And if the emperor cannot be that hand? Varro's lips curve in a smile so small it might not exist. Then perhaps Rome must find another. The words land with the weight of treason, yet no one flinches. Instead, they drink, as if toasting to an idea too dangerous to name. You want to slip away, to vanish into the night, and forget this conversation ever brushed your ears. But Rome does not let go so easily. Once you've heard whispers like these, they cling to you like smoke, impossible to wash out. The sparrow-eyed man leans in. And who will speak for us when the time comes? Who will sway the people? The Senate cannot act without a voice. Varro's gaze slides toward you again, deliberate and heavy. Voices come from unexpected places, he says softly. Sometimes, a stranger speaks with more conviction than a senator bound by politics. Sometimes, a stranger is the safest blade. Or your throat tightens. Safe. Nothing about this feels safe. But you nod, because what else can you do? The days that follow feel like walking on cracked marble, every step threatening to collapse beneath you. Rumors run rampant. Whispers of plots, of lists drawn up in secret, of bribes offered and refused. The city itself seems to hold its breath. At the baths, you overhear two men muttering near the caldarium. Cornelius was only the beginning, one says. Mark me, there will be others. Varro plays a dangerous game? And what of the emperor? The other asks. The first snorts. The emperor. He feasts while Rome burns. He sees only what he wishes. They notice you listening and fall silent, their eyes narrowing. You slip away, heart pounding. In Rome, curiosity is not a virtue, it is a death wish. But curiosity is also irresistible. And so, when Varro summons you again, you go, though every instinct screams to flee. This time the villa is darker. The lamps dimmed as if to cloak the gathering in secrecy. Varro sits at the head of the couch, his expression calm but his eyes burning with intensity. The sparrow-eyed senator is there too, and tonight his hands tremble with excitement rather than fear. It is decided? Varro says, his voice smooth as a knife through wax. Fulvius must fall. The name jolts you. Fulvius, the senator accused of bribes. The one the emperor might have punished, but hadn't yet. His death will show the people that corruption will not be tolerated. That Rome still has guardians. Varro's gaze fixes on you, and you will help deliver the message. Your stomach turns to stone. Help! You came here to witness history, not to write it in blood. Yet here it is, offered like an unwanted gift. You open your mouth to protest, but Varro silences you with a raised hand. Do not think of it as murder. Think of it as survival. Fulvius has already condemned himself. We merely finish what fate began. The sparrow-eyed senator chuckles, a thin, high sound. And with Fulvius gone, the people will see we act where the emperor does not. They will know where to place their loyalty. You cannot breathe. The walls close in, the lamps flicker, and all at once you realize Rome doesn't just kill with swords in alleys, or with poison in figs. Rome kills with ideas, with whispers, with decisions made in rooms like this. And now you are part of it. The night drags on, plans unfurling like a net, and you sit trapped within its threads. By the time you stumble into the cool night air, the stars above seem sharp enough to cut. Somewhere in the city, Fulvius is still alive, oblivious to the noose tightening around his neck. You wonder how long that will last. The following day, the city hums with unease. Soldiers patrol in greater numbers. Slaves whisper in corners. Even the stray dogs seem restless, snapping at shadows. You move through it all in a daze, haunted by the knowledge of what you carry. That evening, a body is found. Fulvius. The forum erupts. Some claim he poisoned himself out of shame. Others whisper assassination. Still others insist it was divine punishment, the gods striking down a man who betrayed Rome. Varro, when you see him, shakes his head gravely. A tragedy. He says once more, the same tone he used for Cornelius. But perhaps necessary. Rome must endure. And just like that, the city calms. Bread riots fade, at least for now. The people starved of food have been fed blood instead, and for the moment it satisfies. But you know better. The hunger will return. The whispers will return. The knives will never be sheathed. That night as you lie awake, the words echo in your mind. Are you loyal? And you realize, with a chill deeper than any Roman winter, that in this city loyalty is not a choice. It is a leash. The leash is already around your neck. And someone else holds the chain. You wake to the sound of drums. Not the gentle pulse of a festival parade, but the heavy, insistent thrum that rattles the chest and quickens the blood. The whole city seems to quiver with it, as though Rome itself has a heartbeat. When you step outside, you understand. The streets are alive with movement, all flowing in the same direction. Men, women, slaves, children, everyone pressing forward. Their eyes are light with hunger not for bread, but for spectacle. Today is a day of games. The Colosseum rises before you like a mountain carved by men, impossibly vast, its arches teeming with bodies pouring in. The air is thick with roasting meat, spilled wine, sweat, and the faint tang of blood that somehow lingers in the stones, no matter how often it's scrubbed. You join the tide, swept along whether you wish it or not. Inside, the roar is deafening. Tens of thousands of voices merge into one, a beast louder than any lion that will prowl the arena today. You squeeze onto a bench. The marble already hot beneath you, though the morning sun has barely risen. To your left, a man with a beard dripping wine shouts insults at no one in particular. To your right, a woman gnaws on a chicken leg, grease glistening on her chin. Below, the arena floor lies empty, a stage waiting for its actors. Sand has been spread fresh, pale as bone, to drink up the blood. And there will be blood. Rome would have it no other way. The trumpets blare. The emperor enters. All at once, the crowd surges to its feet, a wave of devotion and fear. You rise with them, though your legs tremble. The emperor raises a hand in lazy acknowledgement, his robes gleaming with embroidery that would feed 10 families for a year. He does not smile. He does not need to. His presence alone is enough to bind every throat and heart in the Colosseum. The first act is simple. Exotic beasts brought from the far corners of the empire, leopards, lions, elephants, even a crocodile that thrashes angrily in its chains. The crowd gasps, then laughs when the beast handlers prod the crocodile into waddling across the sand. A few men toss scraps of food into the arena, jeering. Then come the condemned. A line of prisoners is herded out, their chains clinking like dreadful music. Some walk with heads bowed, others shout defiance, but all know what awaits. The beasts are released, and the arena becomes a nightmare of teeth and claws and screams. The crowd howls approval, pointing, cheering, laughing as though this were a comedy. You sit frozen, stomach churning, as a lion drags a man across the sand, the man's voice shredding into nothing. Beside you, the woman with the chicken leg claps enthusiastically, grease still slick on her fingers. Better him than me. The bearded man shouts, and others laugh. This is Rome, a city where death is not only expected but demanded. The beasts are eventually recalled, their muzzles wet and red. Slaves rush forward to rake the sand, to cover the carnage with a clean sheet of dust as though nothing happened. The drums beat again. Now comes the true entertainment. The gladiators. They march out in formation, their armor gleaming, their weapons flashing in the sun. The crowd erupts, calling out names, cheering for favorites as if greeting old friends. Each man has his supporters, gamblers who've wagered fortunes on his survival. The announcer's voice booms, reciting their names, their origins, their past victories. A Thracian with a curved sword, a Murmillo with a heavy shield, a Retiarius armed only with a net and trident. Each bows or raises a weapon in salute, the crowd eating up every gesture. The emperor watches with bored eyes, twirling a ring on his finger. His thumb, you realize, is not just an idle habit. It is a weapon sharper than any blade in the arena. One flick down, and a man lives. One flick sideways or up, and a man dies. The fights begin. The clash of steel echoes like thunder. The sand grows dark in patches. Men grunt, shout, scream. Some fight with skill, others with desperation, but all fight with the knowledge that hesitation means death. The Riots casts his net, entangling his opponent, then drives the trident home. The crowd erupts. You lean forward despite yourself, caught in the tide of excitement. For a moment, you understand the frenzy, the intoxicating thrill of watching life balanced on a blade's edge. But then a gladiator stumbles near the wall, close enough that you can see the sweat dripping from his brow, the fear in his eyes. He's no hero, no untouchable legend. He's just a man, and the crowd screams for his blood. The Mamilo drops his shield and raises his arms, appealing to the Emperor. The arena stills, all eyes on that single hand, that single thumb. The Emperor tilts his head, enjoying the silence, the power. Then, with a casual flick, he gestures down. The sword falls. The man dies. The crowd explodes into cheers, wine splashing, hands clapping, voices hoarse with delight. You sit rigid, bile rising in your throat. One gesture, one motion of a hand, and a man's life is snuffed out like a lamp in the wind. But here is the cruel truth in Rome. Silence can kill as surely as a blade. If you sit motionless while others cheer, if your face betrays disgust, you mark yourself as an outsider, as someone who does not belong. And outsiders do not survive long in Rome. So you clap, weakly at first, then louder, forcing your palms together until they sting. You cheer, though the sound claws your throat. You smile though your stomach twists. Because here survival means becoming part of the beast. The games stretch on, hour after hour. Gladiators rise and fall, blood soaking the sand, the crowd never tiring of death's endless variations. At one point, two men fight so fiercely that even the Emperor leans forward, captivated. When one finally falls, the other raises his weapon, awaiting judgment. This time the Emperor spares him, and the crowd erupts into relieved jubilation, as though they too have been granted life. You glance at the faces around you, wild, flushed, eyes alight, and realize that Rome does not just watch violence, Rome feeds on it. Rome is violence. By the time the final trumpet sounds, and the crowd begins to disperse, your ears ring, your throat is raw, and your body aches from tension. You stumble out into the fading light, the streets once more a river of humanity flowing away from the Colosseum. Behind you, the great stone beast looms, its arches glowing red in the sunset, its belly full of blood and sand. You know you will never forget the roar of the crowd, the flick of the Emperor's thumb, the way your own hands betrayed you by clapping for death. But the worst thought, the one that coils in your gut and will not let go, is this: tomorrow you will return. Because here in Rome, to refuse the games is to refuse Rome itself. And no one refuses Rome. The next morning, your ears are still ringing. You swear you can hear the phantom roar of the crowd echoing down Rome's alleys. It clings to you like smoke after a fire, lingering long after the blaze is gone. And yet, despite the sour pit in your stomach, your feet carry you back toward the Colosseum. Everyone else is going. Shopkeepers, housewives, beggars, senators wrapped in purple, trimmed togas. To stay home would invite whispers. And whispers in Rome are just daggers that haven't been unsheathed yet. So you return, shuffling into the monstrous arena once more, pretending not to notice how the very stones seem to exhale yesterday's blood. This time, though, you don't get a seat right away. The crowd presses too thickly. So you linger in the shade of one of the vomitoria, the arched corridors through which the people flood in and out. And that's where you notice them. The gamblers, clusters of men with tablets, wax, and styluses, shouting odds like carnival barkers. They lean close, scribbling bets, smirking at coins changing hands. You can smell them, wine, sweat, and desperation. For some, this is a game of fortunes. For others, it's life or death. You edge closer, listening.
2-1 on Marius the Thracian,
one bellows. Don't waste your denarii, his legs gone soft from last bout. Another retorts. 3-1 on Gaius the Mamilo, shield arm like iron. The crowd surges with their words, wagers flying faster than arrows. It's not just sport. It's war by proxy. Entire families are ruined by the turn of a blade in the sand. A sharp-eyed man with a scar across his cheek notices you lingering. First time betting, he asks. His grin is all teeth. You try to laugh it off, but he presses a wax tablet into your hands. Go on, pick one. You don't want to look like some pale little dove who wandered in by accident. And there it is, the trap again. Rome always demands participation. To refuse is to expose yourself. So you pick at random, scrawling a name you barely remember from yesterday. The scarred man claps your shoulder. Good choice, he says with the kind of voice that makes you instantly doubt yourself. When you shuffle back to your seat, you can't help noticing how many eyes flick toward you, curious whether you belong. The wax tablet burns in your hands. You are entangled now. The games begin anew. This time you watch with a gambler's heart. Every strike, every stumble sends your pulse racing. When your chosen gladiator takes a blow to the shoulder, you nearly leap from your seat. And when he rallies, striking back, you feel a rush of relief so sharp it almost hurts. The crowd is merciless. They cheer not only for victories but for suffering, for clever wounds that spray the sand red. When a gladiator limps, they howl with laughter. When one drops his weapon, they scream for him to be butchered. And you, unwilling but unable to resist, scream with them. But fortune is cruel. Near the end, your chosen man falters, knees buckling. His opponent raises his blade. The crowd begins to chant, the chant swelling, growing, shaking the very stones.
Jugular!
Jugular, throat, cut, kill him. The emperor's thumb tilts downward. The sword falls. Your gladiator collapses, blood soaking the sand. The scarred gambler appears behind you, grinning like a wolf. Better luck next time, he says, plucking the wax tablet from your trembling hands. Or no luck at all. And you realize in Rome, you don't gamble for fun. You gamble because everyone else does. You gamble because not doing so marks you as prey. And sometimes, if you lose too often, you gamble not just with money, but with your life. That night, the streets outside the Colosseum are drunk with victory and despair. Losers howl, clutching empty purses, while winners stagger under the weight of their coins. Gladiators are dragged back to the barracks, some alive, some barely, some only corpses. On impulse, or perhaps madness, you follow them. The Ludus, the gladiator school, is a grim fortress of iron and sweat. Inside, the air is thick with the stink of oil, leather, and blood. Gladiators lounge in the courtyard, their bodies latticed with scars, their eyes watchful. They look at you like wolves watching a lamb stumble into their den. One man approaches. He's tall, broad, shouldered, with the kind of presence that makes the air tighten. His face is a map of healed wounds, and his gaze is hard enough to chip stone. You were in the crowd today? He says flatly. You stammer something, praise, apology, you're not sure which. He studies you for a long moment, then laughs, not kindly. You cheer when we die, but tremble when we stand before you. His voice is like gravel, low and steady. Remember this for us, death is coin. For you, death is cheap. Rome will spend you faster than it spends us. He turns away, leaving you trembling in the courtyard, his words sinking like stones. By the time you return to your lodging, you feel carved hollow. The Colosseum is no longer just an arena in your eyes. It is Rome itself, hungry, merciless, demanding both blood and applause. And you know the most dangerous truth of all, you cannot escape it. To live here, you must play the part. You must cheer. You must gamble. You must pretend the death of men is nothing but spectacle. Because if you hesitate, if you falter, if you let even a flicker of disgust show, then Rome will turn its thumb on you. And when that thumb falls, no crowd will cheer for your survival, only for your silence. You hear the invitation before you see it, whispered like gossip through the street. An elegant scroll carried by a slave in fine sandals finds its way to your hands, and suddenly your heart sinks. Dinner with a senator. Again. You thought the arena was bad, that the politics of the Curia were worse, but Rome has saved one of her cruelest ambushes for last, the banquet. At first glance, you might think, food and wine, what could be dangerous about that? But in Rome, a meal is never just a meal. It is a theatre of power, a performance staged with figs and honey, roasted peacocks, and goblets of spiced Falernian wine. The problem is that you are not here to eat. You are here to survive. The senator's villa looms ahead, brighter than most temples. Torches line the entrance, throwing golden light across marble pillars. Musicians pluck strings by the doorway, playing softly as guests arrive. Your borrowed toga feels stiff and heavy, and you can already sense how out of place you are. Inside, the atrium is bustling. Guests mingle around low couches, laughing too loudly, their rings glittering, their perfumes clouding the air with sweet musk. Slaves rush back and forth, carrying trays of oysters and jugs of wine. You can't help but notice the hierarchy in the very room. The wealthier the guest, the lower the couch they recline on. Everyone else stands awkwardly, waiting to be acknowledged. Then comes the first danger: the seating arrangement. In Rome, where you sit at dinner is not a matter of comfort. It is a declaration of your worth. The host assigns seats carefully, placing allies near him and enemies, either too close to be comfortable or too far to be included. One mistake here: if you accidentally recline on a couch above your station, or worse, take a place reserved for someone more important, you won't just be embarrassed. You will be marked, whispered about, possibly ruined. And here's why this could get you killed. Roman politics thrived on insult. A seating misstep could be interpreted as arrogance, as a challenge to someone's dignity. And when senators feel slighted, they don't send angry letters. They send assassins. You're guided toward a middle couch, safe enough, you hope, and recline on your side as the slaves bring the first course. The meal begins simply: olives, eggs, bread dipped in garum, that infamous fish sauce which smells faintly like the ocean left out in the sun for a week. You take a cautious bite, pretending to savor it, though your stomach churns. Conversation hums around you. One man brags of his villa near Pompeii, another boasts of a rare parrot trained to recite poetry. Laughter rolls like thunder, each story more absurd than the last. And then, as casually as someone mentioning the weather, a senator speaks of a rival who tragically fell ill after a banquet much like this one. His smile lingers as his hand rests on his goblet. You glance at your own wine, the deep red liquid catching the torchlight. Your fingers tighten around it. Poison. Of course. The ultimate Roman dinner trick. Perhaps the most terrifying part is not knowing if it's true. Did that rival really die from a fever, or from a few drops of something slipped into his cup? And worse, what about your own? And here's why this could get you killed. Banquets were prime hunting grounds for poisoners. In a world without forensics, falling ill was a convenient cover for silencing rivals. If someone wanted you gone, a sprinkle of crushed herbs or a trace of venom in your wine would do the job. You pretend to drink sparingly, tipping your cup only enough to wet your lips. But even that feels risky. What if the poison isn't in the wine? What if it's in the bread, the honeyed figs, the roasted dormouse that the slaves now carry in, stuffed with nuts and spices? In Rome, the food itself is a battlefield. As the courses grow more extravagant, so too does the spectacle. A roasted peacock is brought in whole, its feathers reattached for display, its beak painted gold. Guests cheer, tearing off portions with greasy fingers. You take a small bite, mostly to avoid suspicion. The meat is rich, gamey, and overwhelming. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out near the host. Two men argue over a piece of fish. An absurd quarrel, until you realize it's not about the fish at all. It's about power, about who has the right to the choicest cut. Voices rise, faces redden, and before you know it, one of them has grabbed a knife from the serving tray. Guests gasp. Slaves freeze. The host intervenes with practiced ease, laughing loudly, diffusing the tension as if it were all a joke. The knife is lowered, the guests chuckle nervously, and the meal resumes. But you notice how quickly violence lurks beneath the surface, how close this feast came to becoming a bloodbath. And here's why this could get you killed. Banquets were breeding grounds for insult. One wrong word, one drunken joke, one misplaced laugh, and suddenly you're the target of someone's wrath. In a city obsessed with honor, a jest could turn fatal. By the time the main course arrives, wild boar glazed in honey, you're no longer hungry. You force yourself to nibble, watching the others gorge themselves, their laughter growing sloppier with every cup of wine. The floor is sticky with spilled drink, the air thick with smoke and perfume. You start to realize this is not simply a dinner, it's a test. The host watches everyone closely, noting who drinks too much, who stays quiet, who flatters, who insults. Every move is recorded in the invisible ledger of politics. You're not just eating, you're being judged. And here's why this could get you killed. Survival in Rome meant mastering appearances. Fail to drink enough, and you're seen as suspicious, perhaps even untrustworthy. Drink too much, and you risk saying something foolish. Either way, one slip of the tongue, could lead you into a trap you'll never crawl out of. As the musicians play louder and the dancers enter, you sit very still, pretending to smile, pretending to belong. But in your chest, your heart hammers. Because every bite, every glance, every word at this banquet is a gamble. And in Rome, the losers don't just leave humiliated. They leave in coffins. The night stretches long inside the senator's villa. The air grows heavy with smoke, and the torches flicker against painted walls, casting shadows that seem to dance with the musicians. You've survived the opening volleys, the poisoned goblets, the seating traps, the knife almost drawn over a fish, but the danger is only sharpening. Romans did not measure dinners in courses. They measured them in endurance. The wine keeps flowing. Slaves refill cups almost faster than they can be drained, and it becomes clear that this is not generosity. It is strategy. Wine is a weapon here, just as sharp as a dagger. Drink too slowly, and you're branded as aloof, a killjoy, maybe even suspicious. Drink too quickly, and you loosen your tongue, spilling secrets you didn't even know you held. And here's why this could get you killed. The Romans loved nothing more than toasting in excess. To refuse a cup was to refuse camaraderie, and to refuse camaraderie was to risk being marked as an enemy. Your host raises a goblet, his smile a mask, and bellows across the room. To friendship, to Rome, to the gods who feast with us tonight. Everyone cheers. The sound is deafening, bouncing off the marble like thunder. You raise your cup, sip lightly, and hope the gods are listening, because you'll need all the divine protection you can get. The games begin after the third round of toasts. Dice clatter across the table. Coins exchange hands. A man wagers his ring, another his cloak. The slaves look on nervously. One of them will almost certainly be offered up as a steak before the night is over. You hesitate, but the host insists you join. The dice feel slick in your palm, your stomach lurching with the knowledge that luck is not on your side. You roll poorly, of course, and laughter roars around the table. A man with sharp eyes and sharper teeth claps you on the back, too hard, as if mocking your weakness. Beginner's hand, he sneers. You try to laugh it off, but inside, you feel the tremor of another trap closing. And here's why this could get you killed. Gambling debts in Rome were not casual. Lose too much, and you might find yourself, accidentally, indebted to a powerful man who now owns your silence, your loyalty, or your life. The room grows louder, warmer. Food scraps litter the floor. Dogs wander through, licking at bones tossed carelessly under couches. Dancers whirl in, their bracelets jingling, their faces carefully painted with the kind of joy that hides exhaustion. The men cheer them on, some too eager, some too handsy, and you know exactly how quickly this could tip into something ugly. And here's why this could get you killed. Roman feasts blurred the line between entertainment and humiliation. Guests were expected to laugh at the dancers, the jugglers, even at each other. Failing to join the laughter, or worse, laughing at the wrong person, could earn you an enemy with the power to ruin you. The senator himself leans back now, his arm draped across the couch, his eyes surveying the room like a general watching a battlefield. He doesn't eat much. He doesn't drink much. And that's when you realize the host never has to. He is not here to feast. He is here to measure. Every guest is being weighed, tested, poked for weaknesses. You are not at a dinner. You are on trial. And here's why this could get you killed. Roman banquets were intelligence, gathering operations. Loose lips could cost you everything, and silence could look like secrecy. Either way, your words will be remembered long after the food is forgotten. A commotion erupts at the far end of the hall. One man, slumped from drink, slurs something about Caesar, a crude remark wrapped in drunken laughter. The laughter falters. The air shifts. You can feel every guest freeze in place. The host tilts his head, smiling faintly, but his eyes are cold. The drunk man doesn't realize he has just walked into his own grave. And here's why this could get you killed. Politics clung to every dinner like smoke. An ill-timed joke about Caesar, or a careless comment about the Senate, could be interpreted as treason. And treason is not punished with embarrassment. It's punished with execution. The drunk man is ushered away, politely, discreetly, as though nothing happened. The music swells to cover the silence. But you know he won't see the sunrise. By midnight, the feast has transformed into something feverish. The air reeks of sweat, wine, and roasting meat. Guests lie sprawled across couches, laughing too loud, singing too poorly, their robes stained and crumpled. Someone vomits into a bowl, and everyone pretends not to notice. A senator's wife has joined the dancers, her jewelry jingling as she teeters in drunken delight, her husband staring daggers at anyone who dares to watch. And here's why this could get you killed. Affairs and scandals in Rome often began, or ended, at banquets. A careless glance, a flirtatious remark, and suddenly you are the rival in someone else's deadly drama. The host claps his hands. A final course is brought in, platters of sweets, figs dripping with honey, almonds glazed with sugar. It looks innocent enough, but by now your stomach churns. You've eaten too much, drunk too much, pretended too much. You want nothing more than to slip away into the night, but leaving early, that too could be seen as an insult. The banquet isn't over until the host declares it so. You are trapped, a prisoner of courtesy. And here's why this could get you killed. The Romans expected loyalty to extend into the night. To leave without permission could mark you as disloyal, disrespectful, or worse, plotting something against your host. So you stay. You smile. You chew the sweet figs, though they taste like ash on your tongue. You sip the wine, though it burns like fire in your throat. You laugh when the others laugh, though your heart hammers like a war drum. At last, the host rises. His robe gleams in the torchlight, unrumpled, untouched by the chaos of the night. He raises his goblet one final time. To Rome, he declares, on to those loyal enough to share her burdens. The guests roar their approval. You raise your cup once more, but your hands shake. Loyal enough. Was that a toast or a warning? You drink anyway, because you must. The banquet ends as abruptly as it began. Guests stumble out into the dark streets, clutching their cloaks, their heads swimming. Some will wake tomorrow with hangovers. Others will wake to find their reputations destroyed. And a few, very few, will not wake at all. And here's why this could get you killed. Banquets were not simply meals. They were survival games, arenas more subtle, but no less deadly than the Colosseum itself. You step out into the cool Roman night, your stomach heavy, your heart heavier. You survive tonight. But the whispers from this table will echo tomorrow, and you will live or die by what was remembered. In Rome, even the feasts could kill you. The city never truly sleeps. When the banquet finally spits you back into the cool midnight air, you imagine for one blissful moment that you're safe. But Rome laughs at the idea of safety. The moment you step onto the cobbled street, you're reminded that the night is another kind of arena. One without marble seats or cheering crowds, but just as eager for blood. The lamps sputter weakly along the alleyways, their oil nearly spent, their glow swallowed by the shadows of looming tenement blocks. The air stinks of smoke, sewage, and the sour tang of spilled wine. Somewhere, a baby cries from an open window. Somewhere else, a man curses as his donkey refuses to move. Rome hums with life even at this hour, though it is a life sharper, leaner, more dangerous than the daylight ever admits. And here's why this could get you killed. The streets of Rome at night belong to gangs, thieves, and drunkards. To walk alone was to advertise yourself as prey. You tighten your cloak and press forward, keeping your head low. The alley opens onto a broader street, where torchlight glimmers faintly. You think of home, wherever that might be, whatever corner of the city promises a bed, and your feet itch to get there. But Rome has other plans. A group of men loiters beneath an archway. Their laughter is too sharp, their movements too restless. They notice you. Of course they do. In this city, a stranger at night is a gift waiting to be unwrapped. One steps forward, his teeth yellow in the flickering light. Lost, friend. His tone is almost kind, almost. And here's why this could get you killed. Bandits and street gangs roamed the city, sometimes in plain sight. The Praetorians, those famed guards of emperors, rarely patrolled here. You were not in the forum now. You were in the hunting grounds. You mumble something about going home, bow your head, and quicken your pace. The laughter follows you, echoing through the narrow street, but the footsteps, thankfully, do not. For now. Turning the corner, you stumble into a different crowd. Women in painted faces and brightly colored shawls lean from doorways, their bracelets jingling as they beckon. Sweet one. One purrs, her eyes heavy-lidded, come warm yourself. Another reaches for your arm, nails sharp even through the fabric of your cloak. And here's why this could get you killed. Brothels and taverns were often run by gangs. Step inside, and you may never step back out. A man distracted by pleasure was an easy man to rob, or worse, an easy man to disappear. You shake yourself free and duck away, ignoring the string of curses hurled after you. The street narrows again, hemmed by towering insulae, those rickety tenements where half the city seems crammed into wooden boxes stacked like dice. From above, water splashes onto your shoulder. You pray it's only water. The insulae creak in the wind, timbers groaning, shadows shifting. They lean at angles that make you wonder how they remain upright at all. Inside, you hear arguments. Shouted words in Latin, Greek, some dialect you don't recognize. Punctuated by the crash of pottery against a wall. Babies wail. Someone sings, off-key drunk. Someone else moans in pain. And here's why this could get you killed. Rome's tenements were notorious for collapsing or burning in the night. Sleep under the wrong roof, and you might wake to smoke, flame, or rubble. For the poor, death was as casual as rent. You hurry past, heart hammering. The street tilts downward toward the Tiber, its muddy scent drifting closer. A cart rattles by, its driver muttering to himself, the wheels bouncing over uneven stones. Behind him lopes a stray dog, ribs showing, eyes glowing in the torchlight. It growls as you approach, lips curling back. And here's why this could get you killed. Packs of dogs prowled Rome after dark. Hungry, half wild, they attacked the unwary. To die from a bite and infection was no less final than dying from a dagger. You snatch a broken tile from the gutter, hurl it, and the dog yelps, retreating into shadow. You breathe again, but only barely. Rome keeps testing you, daring you to let your guard slip. A sudden shout draws your attention ahead. Two men wrestle in the street, one clutching the other's tunic, dragging him toward a wall. Steel flashes in the firelight, a dagger quick and sharp. You freeze, but too late. They've seen you. Oi! What's this one staring at? The knife, holder growls. And here's why this could get you killed. To witness a crime in Rome was to risk joining the victim. Thieves had no patience for witnesses. You mutter a curse, turn sharply down another alley and run. The stones jar your feet, your breath rasps in your throat. Behind you, laughter echoes. They don't chase. Perhaps you're not worth the effort. Or perhaps they'll remember your face later. The alley opens suddenly into a square. Torches burn here, brighter than before, and you see why a shrine stands at the center, its columns smeared with ash from countless offerings. A handful of worshippers kneel in the dirt, whispering prayers to the household gods. Relief floods you. For a moment, the gods feel like sanctuary. But even here, danger waits. A priest eyes you with suspicion as you approach. His gaze lingers on your cloak, your hands, your face, searching for signs of disrespect. You bow, awkwardly, drop a coin into the brazier, the metal hissing in the flames. And here's why this could get you killed. To appear impious in Rome was to invite accusation. Blasphemy, neglect of the gods. Even a poorly performed offering could mark you as cursed. And curses had a way of becoming self-fulfilling when whispered through the streets. The priest looks away at last, satisfied, and you slip on before he can question you further. The Tiber glimmers ahead now, moonlight rippling across its sluggish water. The bridge looms, thick with shadows. Two figures lurk at its base. You hesitate. To cross is to risk them. To wait is to risk everything else. And here's why this could get you killed. Bridges were ambush points. Narrow paths, no escape, perfect places for robbers to strip you bare and toss you into the river. You steel yourself, stride forward, and keep your eyes down. A coin changes hands as you pass. A toll, unspoken but understood. Your purse is lighter, but your body is intact. Tonight, that counts as victory. The far bank of the Tiber greets you with silence. The streets are emptier here, though the silence feels heavier, almost watchful. You quicken your pace, hoping for the safety of familiar walls, but every step reminds you Rome has no safe corners. Not for the poor, not for the rich, not even for emperors. A scream shreds the silence behind you. You don't turn. You don't want to see. You don't want to know. The city devours its own, and tonight, you are not its chosen meal. And here's why this could get you killed. Rome's nights were a lottery of survival. A wrong turn, a wrong look, a wrong step, and you might vanish into the darkness, just another whisper in the city's endless chorus of death. When at last your door appears, warped and crooked but blessedly familiar, you nearly weep. You slip inside, bolt it fast, and collapse against the wall. Outside, the city still murmurs, restless. Dangerous alive, you survived another night. Barely. But tomorrow. Tomorrow Rome will demand you step out again. And Rome does not always give second chances. Morning comes in Rome with the sound of hammers on stone and shouts in the street. No matter how late you staggered to bed, the city wakes early, and it demands you do too. The sun climbs over the tiled rooftops, spilling light into narrow alleys where the air still stinks of last night's wine and worse. You rub your eyes, step outside, and tell yourself you'll be safer in daylight. Ah, but there's the mistake. In Rome, danger isn't tucked away at sunrise. It just changes costume. Today you're unlucky enough to be caught in a procession. Not a festival. The Romans loved those, too. But one of those impromptu parades that clogged the streets whenever some wealthy aristocrat decided to show off. You hear the clatter first, hooves striking stone, the squeal of wheels, the trumpet blast that makes your ears ring. People shove forward, craning necks, shouting to one another. And here's why this could get you killed. Chariots and carts ruled the Roman streets. Step in the wrong place, and you're under the wheel. There are no crosswalks, no traffic lights, no kind driver waiting to brake. The law was simple: the bigger the cart, the more right of way. You press yourself into a doorway just as the procession thunders past. Painted horses snort, sweat flying from their flanks. The driver, draped in silk, barely glances at the crowd. Behind him rumbles a wagon piled high with amphorae, rattling dangerously with each bump. The bystanders cheer, but one man isn't quick enough. His sandal snags, and in an instant, the wheel crunches over his foot. His scream cuts through the cheers like a blade. Nobody stops. Not the driver, not the crowd. The man writhes on the stones, clutching his shattered toes, while the parade rolls on. Rome loves a spectacle, but not a delay. You step around him, swallowing hard, grateful it wasn't you. The street clears, and you make your way toward the Forum, hoping for calmer ground. But the Forum is never calm. The great square swarms with merchants, magistrates, philosophers, petitioners, and gawkers, all shouting over one another. Marble columns glint in the sunlight, statues loom, and every stone seems polished to impress. Yet beneath the grandeur, the Forum is a trap. And here's why this could get you killed. Speak the wrong word in the wrong ear, and you might be accused of treason. Rome loved gossip almost as much as blood. To mock an official, to question a law, even to mutter about the emperor's sandals being a bit too shiny. Such things could spiral into disaster. As you weave through the crowd, a man with wild hair and eyes like burning coals stands on a platform, gesturing furiously. He shouts about justice, about freedom, about corruption. The crowd roars approval, but the guards lurking at the edges do not look amused. You keep walking, because if you're caught listening too intently, they might decide you share his views. A beggar tugs at your cloak, his voice rasping. His hand clutches your sleeve, but when you glance down, you see his skin mottled with sores. You yank free, pulse racing. And here's why this could get you killed. Disease stalked the streets of Rome. Leprosy, fevers, pox, all passed easily in crowded markets. One unlucky brush, one careless drink of water, and you'd be on your deathbed before the week was out. You push into a side street, hoping for quiet. Instead, you find yourself in the middle of a dispute. Two merchants shout, waving their arms. One has a basket of fish, the other a pile of figs, and both are red, faced with fury. Suddenly the fishmonger snatches up a knife, meant for gutting his catch, and brandishes it. And here's why this could get you killed. Street fights escalated fast in Rome. Weapons were everywhere, tempers were short, and bystanders were fair game. One bad step, and you'd be the unfortunate body bleeding out on the cobbles while the argument raged on. You duck away before either notices you, but the sound of their quarrel lingers, sharp as the stink of fish. The city presses in from all sides now. Buildings loom, voices echo, heat radiates from the stone. You crave escape. And so, like many Romans, you think of the baths. Surely there, at least you can relax. Ah, the baths. Great sprawling complexes of marble and steam, Rome's pride. You enter through towering doors, greeted by warm air and the scent of oil. Voices murmur in tiled chambers, water splashes, the floor is slick beneath your sandals. Men recline gossiping, attendants scurry with towels. It seems a paradise. But paradise is a lie. And here's why this could get you killed. The baths were cesspools of germs and politics. To soak beside the wrong man was to risk insult, infection, or intrigue. The pools were rarely cleaned, the sponges passed from body to body, and the water shimmered with whatever diseases clung to its bathers. You lower yourself into the tepidarium, the warm pool, and force yourself to relax. A man beside you sighs dramatically, launching into a story about his cousin cheated in court. Another interrupts, bragging of his villa. A third leans closer, asking what you think of the emperor's new tax. Careful, very careful. You give vague answers, nod politely, never commit. A single careless opinion could brand you a traitor, or a fool, and either might see you knifed outside the baths before sunset. When at last you rise, skin flushed, you feel both refreshed and dirtier somehow. You slip out before conversation can trap you further. Back in the streets, you feel hunger gnawing. Rome has no shortage of food sellers, bakers, butchers, taverns, stalls with skewers of spiced meat. The smells lure you closer, but your stomach knots. And here's why this could get you killed. Roman food was often unsafe. Grain spoiled with mold, meat rotting in the sun, wine watered down with who knows what. A single unlucky meal could mean days of agony, or worse. Food poisoning in a world without antibiotics was no joke. Still, hunger wins. You buy a small loaf, chew cautiously, and pray it won't rebel in your gut. The afternoon sun bakes the stones now, and the city grows restless. A crowd gathers near the amphitheater, voices buzzing with anticipation, gladiatorial games, the promise of blood and spectacle. Against your better judgment, you drift closer, caught by the roar of the crowd. Inside, the air crackles with energy. The sand glitters under the sun, stained already from earlier fights. Two gladiators face each other, one armored in gleaming bronze, the other half naked, armed only with a net and trident. The crowd screams, stamping feet, demanding violence. And here's why this could get you killed. To displease the mob was to risk its wrath. Shout the wrong cheer, support the wrong fighter, and you might find yourself beaten by your fellow spectators. Rome's crowds were as dangerous as its swords. The fight begins, swift and brutal. The trident darts, the net tangles, the sword flashes. Blood spatters the sand, and the crowd howls. The loser falls, clutching his belly, and all eyes turn to the editor of the games, waiting for the signal mercy or death. The editor raises his thumb, down or sideways, you can't tell, and the victor plunges his sword. The roar shakes the stones. The loser lies still. The crowd is satisfied. For now, you leave before they decide they want more blood, yours included. The streets outside boil with energy, people retelling the fight in excited shouts. You keep your head down, weaving through the throng, thinking only of getting home. But Rome isn't finished with you yet. A troop of soldiers marches past, shields gleaming, spears upright. Their faces are hard, their boots pounding in rhythm. You freeze, press against the wall. And here's why this could get you killed. To disrespect a soldier was to court disaster. A wrong look, an accidental shove, even blocking their path, they could cut you down, and the law would likely side with them. Rome loved its soldiers, even when they terrorized the streets. The troop passes, and you exhale. Your body aches, your nerves are raw, your throat dry. You've survived the chariots, the forum, the baths, the food stalls, the amphitheater, and the soldiers. Barely. When your door finally creaks shut behind you, the silence feels sacred. You sink onto your pallet, muscles trembling, mind whirling. And here's why this could get you killed. Rome demanded constant vigilance. A single slip, one careless choice, one wrong turn, and the city would swallow you whole. You close your eyes, praying tomorrow will be kinder. But deep down you know better. Rome is never kind. Night falls on Rome, and for a brief moment you think the city will finally rest. The day's heat fades, shutters close, and the streets darken. A lantern flickers here, a torch sputters there, but most of the city sinks into shadow. You think maybe this will be safer. Fewer crowds, fewer chariots, fewer soldiers. You would be very, very wrong. Because in Rome, the darkness was a predator. And here's why this could get you killed. Night in the city belonged to thieves, fire, and fear. You step outside your cramped apartment into an alley, where the moon struggles to pierce the smoke, and soot that clings over the rooftops. The first thing you notice is the silence. No bustling marketplace, no clatter of wheels. Just the shuffle of feet in the dark, soft as rats. A figure brushes past you, muttering, and you instinctively reach for your coin pouch. It's still there for now. But Rome at night was never just about pickpockets. The real terror lurked in the glow of sudden flames. The city was a tinderbox. Wooden upper floors jutted over narrow streets. Cloth awnings sagged across lanes. Oil lamps burned too close to straw. A single spark could spread like lightning. And here's why this could get you killed. Fires in Rome were relentless. Once flames began, there was little hope of escape. The alleys funneled smoke, the buildings collapsed inward, and the fire brigades, those slaves owned by the wealthy, often delayed arriving until someone paid them a bribe. Imagine it, you're woken by the smell of smoke, the roar of flames licking through timbers. Neighbors scream, water sloshes uselessly from buckets, children cry. You run into the street, only to find it choked with panicked bodies. The fire leaps overhead, raining sparks. You're pressed, trampled, shoved back toward the blaze. Your lungs sear, your eyes sting, and you realize Rome burns faster than you can flee. Even if you survive the fire itself, you're not safe. Looters follow the flames, slipping through broken walls to steal what remains. If you try to protect your belongings, a knife in the dark might finish what the smoke did not. But suppose, by fortune, your street doesn't burn tonight. Suppose you survive the dark alleys, the thieves, the sparks. You return to your bed, heart hammering, desperate for sleep. Surely that's safe enough. It isn't. And here's why this could get you killed. Roman medicine could do more harm than the illness. In the stillness of the night, you cough. Just once at first, then again, and soon your chest feels heavy. Rome's air was thick with smoke from lamps, reek from sewers, stench from the Tiber. Disease spread quickly, clinging to every shared sponge, every bath, every jug of water. You call for a doctor, and one arrives, a man with confidence but little knowledge. He presses your wrist, nods sagely, and announces your humors are unbalanced. He prescribes bloodletting. Out comes the knife, and soon your arm is bandaged, your body weaker. If the sickness doesn't finish you, the treatment might. Or he recommends a poultice of herbs and dung, spread across your chest. He insists it will draw out the illness. Instead, it draws infection deeper. The truth is brutal for many Romans. A doctor's visit was less a cure than a gamble, and the odds rarely favored survival. But even if you avoid illness, if you keep your lungs clear, your humors balanced, your body whole, Rome has one more danger waiting. The kind you never see coming until it's too late. Poison. And here's why this could get you killed. Poisoning was one of Rome's favorite tools. Wives slipped it into wine, rivals stirred it into stews, slaves dripped it into cups at their master's table. Rome's kitchens were laboratories of betrayal. At a banquet, you lift a goblet of Falernian wine, rich and sweet, only to wonder, was the color always so cloudy? Did that servant linger too long near my plate? You laugh along with the others, but your throat tightens as you swallow. Later your stomach twists, your vision blurs, and your friends marvel at how quickly you've gone pale. Within hours, you're gone, and whispers ripple through the dining room. Too much wine, someone says. A weak stomach, another shrugs. Few suspect foul play, or if they do, they dare not speak. Poison kills quietly, leaving little evidence, and Rome was a city where silence often meant survival. But perhaps you're lucky. No fire, no disease, no poison. You've survived the night, the feast, the dangers hidden in shadow. The sun rises again, and you step out into Rome's streets. Yet even here, in daylight, the city plots new ways to test your luck. Because here's why this could get you killed. The law itself could destroy you. The courts of Rome were spectacles, like theaters, where words weighed more than truth. If an enemy dragged you there with an accusation, real or invented, you faced disaster. Bribes whispered in a judge's ear, senators swayed by rhetoric, crowds swelled to hear the case. You stand before the magistrate sweating as your accuser unleashes a torrent of words. You protest, but your voice falters. The crowd jeers. The verdict slams down guilty. The punishment might be exile, whipping, or worse, execution. And all because someone wanted you gone. This was Rome's final cruelty. Survival didn't hinge only on your strength, or your wit, or your luck. It depended on invisible threads. Who you angered, who you trusted, who whispered your name in the wrong corridor. And here's why this could get you killed. Rome thrived on spectacle, and your death could be one more show. Whether in the arena, in the forum, or in the flames of your own home, the city never lacked an audience. So you pull your cloak tighter, duck your head, and whisper a silent prayer. You've made it through another day, another night, another endless gauntlet of dangers. But deep down, you know the truth. Rome isn't finished with you yet. Because in this city, death is not an accident. It's a tradition. Morning in Rome begins with chains. Not your chains, at least not yet, but the rattle of them as slaves shuffle through the streets, carrying burdens too heavy for their shoulders and too old for their bones. Their backs are bent, their eyes downcast, and yet their presence is everywhere. In the markets, in the households, in the temples, in the palaces. Rome was built on their labor, their silence, and their suffering. And here's why this could get you killed. Slavery was not only their danger, it was yours too. If you were a slave, survival depended on the whims of your master. One wrong glance, one spilled cup, one half-heard whisper, and the lash cracked across your back. If your master was merciful, it stung and scarred. If he wasn't, you could be branded, mutilated, or crucified. Your body left on the roadside as a warning. But even if you weren't a slave, slavery could still kill you. Because the same hands that poured your wine could poison it. The same servant who dressed you could slip a blade between your ribs as you slept. Every Roman household was a nest of potential conspirators, simmering with quiet rage. You trust your cook. He has access to every meal. You trust your steward. He knows every coin you hide. You trust the girl who braids your wife's hair. She knows her secrets better than you do. And here's why this could get you killed. Slavery made betrayal intimate. Imagine sitting at dinner, laughing with friends, when suddenly a slave rushes in with wide eyes. The kitchen's on fire. You leap up to find your pantry smoldering. Later, you discover it wasn't an accident. A disgruntled servant had torched it, knowing the punishment would be death, but also knowing they'd die with the satisfaction of taking your wealth. But what if you try to be different? A kind master, gentle, generous. It hardly matters, because slaves weren't a few, they were half the city. Tens of thousands, outnumbering citizens. And every Roman whispered the same fear: what if they rise? And here's why this could get you killed. Slave revolts were Rome's nightmare. The most famous, Spartacus, a gladiator chained and beaten, who decided he would die fighting instead of rotting. He escaped, gathered others, and soon an army of tens of thousands surged across Italy. They raided estates, slaughtered masters, and shattered the illusion of Roman control. For years, Rome trembled. Senators panicked. Generals blundered. Families fled. Imagine waking to the news that rebels were marching closer. You glance at your own slaves, the man who sharpens your knives, the boy who cleans your sandals, and wonder if they will slit your throat tonight, or wait until Spartacus arrives. You try to sleep, but every creak in the dark is a hand reaching for you. Rome crushed that revolt, of course. Crassus lined the roads with crucified bodies, 6,000 of them, stretched from Capua to Rome, a forest of agony. It was meant to be a warning. But what it really did was remind everyone the danger never ended. And here's why this could get you killed. The system itself demanded blood. If a master was murdered by a slave, Roman law required every slave in the household to be executed, whether guilty or not. Hundreds of innocents could be slaughtered, because one had dared to act. You might believe this kept you safe. But imagine the simmering fury it bred. The quiet vow in a slave's heart to take you down, even if it meant dragging every soul in the villa to death. You see, Rome's brilliance was also its flaw. By binding itself so tightly to slavery, it chained itself to a constant threat. Every villa, every palace, every banquet was a powder keg. And you, standing there with your fine toga and your easy laugh, are sitting on it. But let's say you survive the household dangers. You treat your slaves just well enough, or perhaps you are lucky enough to own none. You think you've dodged this particular knife. Not so fast. And here's why this could get you killed. Family in Rome could be deadlier than enemies. You sit at the family table, breaking bread with your kin. They smile, they nod, they pour your drink. But behind those smiles are ambitions, grudges, jealousies. Fathers feared sons who might inherit too soon. Wives feared rivals who might replace them. Brothers feared brothers who wanted more land, more titles, more power. The family wasn't just blood, it was politics. And politics in Rome always ended in death. Consider Agrippina, the mother of Nero. She poisoned her husband Claudius so her son could take the throne. Later, Nero feared her influence, so he arranged for her accidental death. First by collapsing a boat beneath her, then, when she swam ashore, by sending assassins to finish the job. Or think of Britannicus, Claudius's son, who dared to be a rival to Nero. At a banquet, his wine was poisoned. He collapsed mid-song, his face purple, while Nero calmly sipped his own cup. And here's why this could get you killed. Trust in Rome was a luxury you couldn't afford. Every meal, every marriage, every conversation was a gamble. You might think your family protected you, but often, they were the first to push you toward the grave. So you learn to sleep lightly, to eat cautiously, to smile warily. You survive one day, one night, then another. But deep down, you know survival in Rome was never about living well. It was about avoiding the 1,000 ways the city wanted you dead. Fire, disease, poison, law, slavery, family. Each one a blade hanging above your head, waiting for the string to snap. And here's why this could get you killed. Rome itself was not built for safety, it was built for spectacle. Every death was a lesson, a warning, a story told in whispers, or shouted in the forum. And as you walk through the city, cloak drawn tight, you feel it in every step. You are both an actor and a victim, a citizen and a sacrifice. The Colosseum roars, the Senate schemes, the alley darkens, the Tiber stinks. And through it all, Rome waits, hungry for its next offering. Perhaps it will be the senator too bold with his words. Perhaps the slave too desperate with his knife. Perhaps the merchant too careless with his lamp. Or perhaps it will be you, because in ancient Rome, survival was not the norm. Death was. And that is why you wouldn't last a day.